All right, welcome back to another episode of the Healthy Funnel Podcast. This one is a huge one. We have an incredible guest with us. We got to see her speak live at Funnel Hacking Live this past year, and she absolutely rocked it. We have the one and only Marley Jaxx on the show. Marley, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We're so excited. Alex and I, when we watched you speak, it was just like, oh, if we could ever interview her, that would be amazing. And so we feel so lucky to have you here. I also thought it was really cool that you put the little banjo playing guy in
Mariachis.
the mariachi guy. Oh, that was such a reveal afterwards where I was like, I didn't see that at all. So that was super. But we're so happy to have you here because our audience is a lot of healthcare providers. You know, a lot of them are having to move online right now. They're trying to figure out this whole world of content, of putting themselves out there, becoming a local authority. And you are one of the world's leading experts on getting yourself out there, how to create amazing content. And I feel like there's no better person to be speaking about this right now. And Marley, for anyone who's listening, who might not know a little bit about your journey, what led you into getting into video content?
I was a dental hygienist and I was doing social media part-time on the side, and I wanted to get more clients and get myself out there more. So I started making videos for myself to get my name out there and show people that I know my stuff. And those videos really started to take off. And then I thought, can I do videos like this for my social media clients now too? And so I dove head first into that, and then it just really grew from there. It was how to create videos that actually make an impact and a profit.
Wow, that's awesome. I didn't even know that you were a dental hygienist.
I know, weird, right?
What? So
Yeah.
did you start this on your own? Did you have to like get permission from the clinic you were working at? Did you start filming videos left
It
and
was
right?
it was actually, I was doing social media for the dental office. That was like my first thing, because between patients I was bored. Like cleaning teeth is super boring. It's not ideal. So I was doing their social media, and then their IT guy was like, "Hey, would you do social media for my other client? Like they have another office. It was a plumbing company, and they're like, they could use help with social media. Could I refer you to them?" Well, next thing you know, he's referred me to all of his clients. So then I had a business. And so I'm like running to the bathroom to hide between patients to like create content and post things on social media for my clients. And no, my dental office that I worked at, they knew what I was doing and they were always supportive. And as the business grew, I would start to reduce my time in the office, and they were always really supportive.
Wow. So is it something that you imagined yourself doing? Like when you were sitting there hovering over teeth, were you dreaming of like, man, you know what? Actually, I want to be on video. I want to own my own business. Or was this something that just kind of happened for you that you kind of fell into?
That's so funny. No, like I never expected that. I knew that dental wasn't going to be my forever thing. But I always loved performing, or as a kid, I would act and I would sing, and I was in drama and stuff like that. And so one of the ways that I kept myself entertained at the dental office is that I would tell so many stories and like try to be funny. Like I would be a dental hygienist stand-up comedian and try to get people to laugh, because while your hands are in their mouth, you can only have like a one-way conversation. So it was like I was split testing my stories. Like I would tell a story to this person, and then the next patient that would come in, I would like tweak the story to see what would get a better reaction, and just continue to try to get a response from them and get like more laughs.
That's so cool. How fun that you had that mentality early on of like, let me see how this works. And then let me just test this. And let me just test this. Because so many people who are in the healthcare space, which is most of our audience, get so nervous about ever testing something and putting out something that's not quite perfect. And you put out a lot of content at this point.
Mhm.
How did you get over that? Or maybe you didn't have that initially, but how do you help clients get over that fear of putting out something that's not totally perfect the very first time? Because a lot of people deal with that early on.
Mhm. One of the things that I go to, even in my own content, like if you go to the beginning of my YouTube channel, there's videos where I'm like, why did I do my hair like that? Or why did I film from that angle? Like there's one video where the camera is like below my eye level. So I'm looking down at the camera, so it looks like my eyes are closed. And it's just like, well, I'm human. I had to start somewhere. You can see how I grew this whole time. But it's also, I really work with my clients too on their roadblocks, their false beliefs, what's holding them back. Like, they say that they want this result, but who do you have to be to create that result? Like, if you're not going to be courageous and be brave enough to get on camera, how do you think anyone's going to take you seriously? And so when I ask the question, who's afraid of the camera, and like half the audience raises their hands, I'm like, no, you're not. It's a piece of metal and plastic, and I've seen you taking selfies. Like, you are not afraid of the camera. What you are afraid of is stagnation, obscurity. You're afraid of stepping out of your comfort zone. So like, let's address that. And let's also address the consequences of you not doing this. Like, if your competitor gets ahead of you because you have this fear and you're not able to overcome it, your competitor probably has less integrity than you, and they're going to reach the audience that needed you, and they're going to continue to drown without you. And you just did yourself and your audience a disservice.
Yeah. I think that's, when you started out, Marley, I think that's such a great point. And I think I don't know, I imagine being a dental hygienist being kind of a perfectionist type job too, where you're in there like really fine tuning things, and to be able to work, I imagine probably the process of deep perfectionizing yourself, of this concept of like, everything has to be so perfect and tidy. With that in mind, when you were making your first videos, I think a lot of people, we've seen healthcare providers go, I'm just going to tell them everything about my expertise when we do this. I'd be really curious, what was like your first, the first wave of content you made for the dental hygienist office? Was it the stand-up comedy Marley coming out, or was it more like, here, let's talk about teeth and the details of teeth?
Yeah, for the most part, it was just information and facts. On my own videos, like for social media, to get more social media clients, that's where I would put in comedy. But at first I would just do information and facts. And then that's where I started to learn, oh wait, like, people want to connect to people. They don't just want like step 1, 2, 3. That's where we need the story. So then I would implement some humor. So my plumbing client, for example, we created a character that one of the service technicians would put on an Australian accent, and he would become Plumber Dundee. And that made it really entertaining and fun. Or there was another guy who would put on sunglasses, and he'd be like Mr. Cool, too cool for school, and you get an air conditioner so you can be cool like me. And we would inject humor into it. So even in like my Instagram stories, which you mentioned earlier, like I'm always trying to have a mix of humor and heart, like the vulnerability, but then also I'm not going to take myself so seriously that I can't laugh at myself. So I try to put that in all of my content too. Like, what are the stories that I can inject to be real?
So with where you've come from, how long ago was that when you stopped cleaning teeth and you moved full time into kind of growing your empire? How long ago was that?
I started my business in 2016, and I left full time in 2017.
Wow. What did you learn about yourself in that process from, hey, I'm hovering over teeth all day, I have this desire to like, no, people actually value what I say. Like, what did you learn about yourself, about Marley during that process?
Oh man, love that question.
Well, we get so many people who get so stuck in like, I don't have value to give to people, where I might be in the clinic all day, like stretching someone's shoulder, because we have a lot of physical therapists, but they don't feel like people want to listen to them. Mm-hmm. And I think I know Will and I both passed through that as we were early on in our journey. How did you get through that phase?
I definitely learned a lot about my self-worth when I first started a business. I love this thing that Stephen Larson always says, like, my business will only grow to the level that I do. And Alex Sharfin also says being an entrepreneur is the most spiritual experience. And so going from being in a 9-to-5 where it's like, here's the rules, here's the hours, you clock in, you clock out, you don't bring work home with you. In this case, you can't bring teeth home with you. And then coming into being an entrepreneur where now I work for myself, the results I get are based on my input and all the effort that I'm willing to put in. And if I want to grow, what do I have to do that? But more than the doing is the being, like I talked about before. Like, who do I have to be to do what I have to do to have what I want to have? That was the biggest revelation for me that I learned from one of my first coaches, Jim Fortin, was looking at, if I want to have this result, I need to reverse engineer my behavior, but then also the identity of who I am. Like, if I want to create this business, this $1 million business, can I do that if I'm not committed? If part of my identity does not include being a committed person? And then how does that spill out into the rest of my relationships or aspects of my life. So when we're looking at content too, it's like, what kind of entrepreneur or visionary or influencer or leader, whatever, do I want to appear as for my audience? And how can I actually be that person, instead of getting caught up in, you know, the false beliefs or excuses I've made in my head.
Yeah. Marley, what, if it's okay to ask, what were some of those false beliefs that you were going through early on?
A big one for me, and also like ask the deep questions. I love having these
Yeah.
conversations. When I first started my business, had no boundaries, because I was just like, I want to say yes to every opportunity. I want to work with every single person. I want to be everything to everyone. And so I would have clients, you know, that would scope creep, try to get more than what we had agreed to. And I would just want to make them happy and keep them as clients. So sure, I'll do that. Or clients that, you know, would adjust, you know, whether it's the scope of work or payments or whatever, or, hey, I need this thing, it's 4:00 in the morning. Whoa. Part of me got my self-worth from my clients being happy or growing my business, instead of looking at like, what do I really provide to the people who need me and appreciate me. And it affected my personal life too, to think of, how am I bending over backwards for clients, for people that I'm trying to get this validation from, when there are people right next to me, my friends, my family, my loved ones, who I don't have to prove anything to, and they love me for who I am. So that was a big one, was like, I have to over deliver and overperform for people to love me, for clients to love me and stay with me, because that's where I felt I got my self-worth from.
And where do you feel like you get your self-worth from now? I'm literally asking, I'm just like, okay, coaching moment. Cause I need to, like, Will and I are at this point too, where we're so used to saying yes to everyone. I think so many of us are early on in our businesses. We feel like you have to do that in order to be successful. Now, having grown through that process, how do you find self-worth for yourself? Because I see your ads all the time too. I'm sure people are starting to rag on you. I'm sure you get haters at this point. Like, how do you rise above all that stuff and people doubting you and letting people down sometimes, which you have to do as a business owner? How do you deal with that now personally to feel good about Marley?
Mm-hmm. To feel good about Marley, and I again, going back to the Stephen Larson quote, my business only grows to the level that I do. So I'm always looking at what do I need to see in myself, or what am I not seeing? And I have a really close circle of friends that, like, we can call each other out on our stuff and lovingly be like, hey, you know, you said this, or you're doing this. And like, I go to therapy, and I think it's the best thing ever for entrepreneurs, because like we said, entrepreneurship is a very spiritual experience. And as you're growing and evolving, and you've signed up for a life of transition where you're constantly dealing tough stuff and having to face it head on so you can get to that next level. But most people aren't willing to look at that. So you asked, where do I generate my self-worth from? I had to learn how to generate that from within, instead of looking at the external sources, which of course are very validating. When you have the internet being like, I love this and you're amazing, and like, absolutely, it feels great. But if all that disappeared, how do I feel about me? I know that I'm a great leader. I know that I provide value. I know that I over deliver from a place of wanting to, and heart and service. And that makes me feel good, instead of feeling like I'm doing it for a result or doing it to avoid a consequence. So I had to come to terms with that and appreciate that about myself, and love that about myself, and just being committed to that growth, knowing that I'm going to continue to grow and be able to serve at a higher level, but it has to come from an authentic place first.
Man, I thank you for sharing that, Marley. I think that's, I think we all need to hear more of that, of keeping that in mind, especially in a service-based business where you're serving clients and helping them. I would really love to know, before we dive into maybe some tactical things, because I just think it's so important. How did you end up setting boundaries? How did you work through the process of not always saying yes?
I think I got to a breaking point, like hitting rock bottom and being like, I can't do this. Like, this is miserable. This isn't why I started my business. I think we all have a why behind why we do what we do. And often it's to provide a good life for our families, or to have the flexibility and freedom that maybe we didn't have growing up. And then you get to this place where you're like, wait a minute, I don't have that at all. Like I'm not spending time with my family, or I'm not happy. This isn't flexibility. This isn't freedom. And I got to a place where I was like, I have to fire all my clients. And I actually had a really like heart-to-heart conversation with my parents, that they were like, this isn't you. This isn't the Marley that we know. And like, if we have to support you financially while you transition through this, we will. And luckily they didn't, because I also believe that when you take the choices and the steps towards the right direction that's in alignment with you, that things will fall into place. Because I was in a place of trying to force things and be like, I have to work really hard and I have to hustle for this. And then when I let it go, things all fell into place. So yeah, I think hitting rock bottom was what made me realize I have to change something. And I actually, I think I also found like what I value. I remember being in a webinar, and the chat was blowing up, and people are like, I love you, Marley, this is amazing. And all the, the external validation that you can get, and like the sales are coming through. My Stripe account is, cha-ching, cha-ching. And then I closed down the webinar, and I closed my laptop, and I'm like, I'm alone. Like, this is what I have left. Like, the internet loves me, that's great. But like, how do I actually feel? Like, I'm sitting in my house alone, and I mean, I have a life outside of my business now, but imagine if all that goes away. Like, what do you actually have? Who are you as a person? And can you be proud of that?
Wow. That's hard to hear, I think, for a lot of us early on, when you think, I got to hustle, I have to grind, I have to make it work. And then Will and I have been through that too, where you get to a certain point and it's like, why work so hard if you're gonna lose what's really important to you? And it's so interesting because the business will take whatever you give it. Like, it'll just keep taking and taking. And especially as you start bringing on more and more clients, they can take and take. And if you're not the one to say no, it has to stop somewhere. Like it sometimes it just doesn't. Yeah. So thank you for that story. I think it's so important to remember that, like, we're in charge of our business at the end of the day. The business that we have, we built, or we allowed to be built. And I was curious to know how your model shifted. Like, I'm assuming early on, were you kind of all one-on-one client work?
Yep. I had a lot of one-on-one clients, and I started to make courses. But even that, it took a long time for me to figure out, like, how do I serve my audience? Like, I thought, oh, I'll just build this course and I'll talk about YouTube, but like, it didn't sell. Well, how do I promote myself and the messaging behind it, instead of just like, hey, it's a YouTube course? Like, then I had to find, what is it that people actually want? The market will always tell you if you listen.
So how did you shift then from that one-on-one to what you're doing now? I would love to know, just from a like business kind of model standpoint, how did you move beyond just one-to-one stuff into what you're doing now?
We still do have one-on-one, but that's like the top of the value ladder for the people who want that in depth. But for the most, like, I then looked at, well, what do people want? And I created first a beta program for like a group coaching program, and it did really well. But then even from that, like, you're always, as an entrepreneur, you should always be doing market research. What does the audience actually want? And then to be able to really bring people into our audience and scale our audience and ROI faster, I had to look at, what are the front ends that are getting people to know me? You mentioned, like, you see my Facebook ads all the time. Well, yeah, because we have these front end offers that are bringing people in, and our challenge does really well. And I love to over deliver and give people a result fast so that they can trust me more and want to ascend into the next steps of the value ladder. So we took pieces of our like high ticket one-on-one service and then broke that into, how can I turn that into a do it yourself and a done with you, instead of just the most expensive done for you level.
Ooh, that's so good. Russell talks about that all the time. Like, hey, break that up into that. So you've done really, really well with, at least from the results that I'm seeing people get. You're killing it with your challenge right now. How do you get, like, what was your process like to go through and decide, hey, this is how I can get someone a result within 21 days? Like, how did you map that out? Because that's not an easy thing to do, as a lot of people are looking at, how do I create something front end like that? How did you structure that to be able to say, no, I think this is something that's highly valuable in a short amount of time that can really get a transformation for someone?
Yeah. I mean, reverse engineering, what's the result I want them to get? And then I also look at it by like, what's the result financially, impact, personal development? Like, I don't want it to just be like, I got you a result, you have X plus Y equals Z. Like, how do you actually feel about that? So in my content, I'm also telling stories to break those false beliefs. Russell says this thing about like, your stories have to be better than their stories. And their stories are their false beliefs, the stories they're telling themselves. So in my content, in my lessons every day, like we talked about, if someone's saying they're afraid of the camera, I'll tell a story about that. Or if they feel like they don't have charisma, I'll tell a story about Marilyn Monroe or Beyonce with their alter egos that they have, of how you can break that for yourself. So I'm looking at the transformation I want them to have in these different aspects, and then reverse engineering that to like, okay, what's step one?
I love it. I love it. And really, so it's just pretty much putting your framework into place and having someone be able to go through it to get the result that they want, which is, it's been so fascinating for us as you just described that process, that as healthcare providers, we get caught in the ego of, well, I'm the one, I have to be the agent of change. I have to be the one to do the thing to you. When really, so many of us are just operating under a framework. We do the same things over and over and over again, applied to different people. I would be really curious, Marley, if for, let's say there's a small practice owner, like a dental practice or a physical therapy practice that is, maybe one person, they're a solo practice and they've got their private practice, and something like COVID happens, like we're in the middle of this right now, and they have this time and they have their phone. Where's the best use of their time right now in your mind to be like, what kind of, and it's a huge question, but what type of content should they be making, and where should they be putting it out of this, what seems like infinite sea of places where you can put your media?
When COVID first hit, I made the decision to get louder. And there were a bunch of people too that were like, why are you trying to sell us right now? Like, don't you know what's happening in the world? People are losing their jobs. And I was like, I get it. I am fighting with you. I am fighting for you. And I know that what I have to offer is going to support you in being able to recover from this. I know that in my 21-day challenge, I've had people that have made thousands of dollars. So me asking you to sign up for $47, that seems like a good thing. And I'm not trying to scam you out of anything. So when I talk to other people too, that are like, well, should I be like, I don't know if I can get louder right now? Absolutely. Because even if your audience is in a financial position that they can't invest right now, when this is over, they're going to remember you being a light for them in this dark time. So I would recommend doing the Facebook Lives, creating polished, produced content for YouTube, and then you can repurpose that video. Like from a 5-minute video, how many standalone pieces of content can you grab from that? Like a little 30-second snippet, take the transcription, turn it into a blog post, turn it into a quote picture. Like you can make a lot from just one video. So I love like the Facebook Lives, showing the behind the scenes of what you're doing, Instagram stories, even more so because they're just short little snippets and they disappear in 24 hours. So people are also more engaged with them. Get louder and on as many platforms as you can. But I also recommend to be strategic about it, that you're not just blasting it everywhere. Do a YouTube video providing value about a certain subject that people are Googling, because you have to remember that YouTube is a search engine. And when you can make that video and you can then repurpose it for all your other content, you can hit up all these platforms without feeling like you're running on the hamster wheel or feeling like you had to put so much time and effort into it.
So for someone who's in that situation, who says, great, I want to get louder. I have probably a brick and mortar business. Maybe I have some online following. How do you suggest that they get out of that sort of pit of only creating that expert content where they're just like, oh, today I'm going to talk to you about knee pain. And that's the only thing. And I know that you're so big on helping people pull out their stories. How does someone who is so focused on like, well, I just help people solve this problem. How do you help them pull out their unique story? Like if they're like, oh, I don't have anything special. Like, I don't know. I just obsessed with knee pain all the time. Like, how do you help someone realize, no, you do have something cool inside you. Let's pull out those stories.
Yeah. I get that a lot where people are like, I don't really have an origin story. I'm like, yes, you do. You're just too close to it that you can't see it. So I'll ask them those questions, or even just, ask them yourself, like, why did you become an entrepreneur or a physiotherapist or a dentist, whatever your career is, why did you become that? What did you think when you first chose that career? Was there something that happened to you personally in your life that inspired you? Like, did you, for me, like I spent a lot of time in the dental office because I had braces as a kid. And I also was insecure about my smile. There was an adult that said something mean to me when I was 6 years old about my smile. And so that I didn't realize until later that influenced my decision in that. And I loved working with kids in the dental office and helping them feel confident. Like I didn't realize that about my story until I took a step back and was able to see that about myself. And then even with what you're going through now, like it doesn't have to be your upbringing. It's also the conversation you overheard at the gas station. It's the thing that your client said to you or a result that you got that then becomes a story that you then tie into your thing. And as you start to look for content, you'll realize it's everywhere around you. And it also doesn't have to be your story. It could be a story you heard from someone else. I said this year at Funnel Hacking Live, I retold Nicholas Bayerly's story about how you turn your mess into your message. And I reference it saying, he said this last year, and that's exactly what I'm telling you again. And so his story, when he shares it, becomes all of our stories, and we reference it and tie it back into your thing.
I love it. I love it. I've got one kind of tactical question for you, Marty, if that's okay, about YouTube. We've had a lot of clinicians lately say, I want to start a YouTube channel. I want to get out there. A lot of them have local businesses. And I'm just really curious, are there any strategies that local business owners can use? Because I think a lot of them, I watch them put titles in that are just how to fix knee pain. And that's the title. And which maybe is great. And I guess I'd be curious, like if you're local, should you be adding more local terms, keywords into your title, description? Just curious how, because a lot of people want to use it to generate more patients, more clients. And if you have any tips for sort of local YouTube, would be awesome.
Yeah, I definitely would add in the location so that people can be finding it. And especially because people are Googling physiotherapist, Boise, whatever, like the location. So that should be in your title too. I do like the how-tos. A lot of people are Googling how-to. But there are apps, there are tools that you can use to do keyword research. My favorites are Keywords Everywhere. It's just a Google Chrome extension. And TubeBuddy, T-U-B-E, Buddy, like YouTube, TubeBuddy. And those will show you what are people searching for, how are they searching for it, and what's the competition level at it too. Because if you make a video that has like super high competition, you're a small fish in a big pond. So there's also, use those apps to figure out how you can title those videos. I had a client that we made a video for her that we wanted to title it something like how to lose belly fat, very common subject. We did the keyword research and found how to flatten your belly had much lower competition, but still high search volume. So, and now that video is ranking and gets tons of viewership. So it's also in how you title your videos, because like we said, YouTube and Google, they're search engines. So you have to title them based on how people are searching for them.
Cool. Should someone, so tactical follow-up to that, should someone be concerned about the amount of calls to action they have in a video? We get a lot of people who are like, oh, I want to put out valuable content. I just don't want people to feel like I'm pitching them all the time.
Yeah.
Like, how do you balance that in a world where realistically people need to take action if they're going to solve their issue, but at the same time, we don't want to turn people off by just constantly telling them, go here, go here. How do you advise people to deal with that?
Yeah, I get clients or students that ask, well, I don't want to give a call to action because I don't want to be spammy. Then don't be spammy. Like, that's not the intention of your call to action. Your call to action is meant to give them the next piece of value. For example, one of my clients, Christy Code Red, her video, she's talking about how to get out of the grocery store with a cost-efficient budget and to still be within the Code Red lifestyle, meal plan. And then she says, click the link below you can actually print off my grocery list. That's a call to action that gets them on the email list, and it's the next thing that they needed. So you need to have a call to action. If you want to take the next step, if you're on a first date and you want a second date, you don't play hard to get, you ask for it. So you have to have the call to action. The one thing that I would think is spammy is if you have a ton of calls to action, but like, click the link for this thing, it's going to give you the next step that you need. And it has to obviously be the next step, the next piece of value that they need. And then also asking them to like, comment, subscribe. That's another call to action that you need to ask for so that they continue their relationship with you.
I love that. Life lesson to all men as well. If you want a second date, probably ask, right?
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
fall off the face of the earth. Like she's probably sitting there like,
Yeah.
you didn't ask. I didn't know. We got to do that. We got to ask those questions. I want to ask I'm super curious, Marley. Have you attempted stand-up comedy yet? I feel like if you haven't, is that in the future plans?
My Instagram stories are my playground, my platform. Maybe one day. I wouldn't rule it out. Probably sometime. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay. I think you should. I did it last year as a course or a class. It was a blast. I learned so much about writing. So I highly recommend, like, for scripting things out. I just think you would kill it. And I know that you mentioned that you did it slightly in your videos early on. So I highly recommend that. You would be perfect for it.
All right.
Okay.
I'll consider it.
With that in mind, how do you help people? I think we get a lot of struggle from people who are like, I just don't know what to say, or they don't prepare and they just put the camera on. They're like, it'll come to me, and then it doesn't. And they are like, I'm never doing this again.
Yeah.
How do you help people? Do you have a strategy, or is there a way that you help people actually feel prepared when they go to film themselves?
Yeah. I mean, if you just turn on the camera and ramble, that's also going to be impossible for editing. So you have to film with the editing in mind too, that it has to follow a flow. If you're confused, your audience is going to be confused. So we follow an outline, introduce the topic, tease the lead magnet, go into the body of the content, step 1, step 2, step 3, or just in points that follow one after another, recap the solution you've just provided, drop the call to action again, and then outro, like, comment, subscribe. Like, when you follow that, it's very easy, it's simple, and you don't have to feel like you got to get it done in one take, or, oh my God, like, where do I go next? Like, just outline, intro, call to action, step 1, step 2, step 3, recap, outro.
Ooh, that was solid. That was really solid. I got to say, Marley, you can tell that you do this a lot. Like, you're so quick on being able to give like clear coaching. You're really good at it. I'm really curious, what are some things that you've tried in your business that you learned, like, oh, I never need to do that again? Like, I'm looking at, like, what are the things that are like, that went really south? Like, I'm looking at, sometimes we've thrown together webinars last minute where it's like, wow, that turned out pretty crappy. And we didn't make very many sales off it, but glad we tried. Like, just, different little things. What's something that you've tried in your business that really didn't work out that you're like, yeah, never doing that again? Maybe it's a content strategy. Maybe it's like an actual offer. What's something that you tried that's like, nah, never doing that again?
Oh my gosh, I don't know, my own taxes. Yeah, never gonna do that again. I don't know, I can't think of it. Like I haven't had too much that's like crashed and burned, because I think it always leads towards something. And if I launch something and it didn't work, you just tweak it and you just try again. Yeah, that's a good question though.
I first of all, do you know Brad Gibb?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, good. I was going to say, man, if you didn't know Brad Gibb, go to Brad Gibb for taxes. Will and I've just been looking at, like, all the products that we've launched, and sometimes things go really well, and sometimes it's like, oh yeah, wow, that one, that's great. We'll never talk about that one. So as we're finishing up, someone right now who's early on in the game, and it's like, I really want to I want to step up my content game, but I'm so overwhelmed by the fact that Marley told me I can make a 5-minute YouTube video and repurpose it for Facebook and repurpose it for Instagram. Where should, in your opinion, speaking from someone who's helped a local healthcare business, where should a local healthcare business start when coming to content creation? If they had to pick one platform, which one would you tell them to start on?
Well, I think that depends on where your audience is. So I'm guessing Facebook or Instagram, but I think it also depends on the type of clients or patients that they're seeing. Sometimes when people ask, like, what platform should I be on? I'm like, we need to do a little bit of market research to know where your people are, but then go straight there, run, don't walk.
Love it. I love it. Marley, I just have one last question that we work with a ton of young female entrepreneurs, especially in healthcare, because it's predominantly, I don't know the latest statistics, but easily over 60%, if not 70% of people in healthcare workers are female and are women. And we're seeing this rise. If we were to look at our own client base, like of the people we coach and work with, very heavily skewed towards women. And it's been so fun to watch. And I realize like, there's just so much more, there's so many other layers that, you know, Alex and I just we don't see every day outside of what we do with our clients. And I would be really curious. I know you can help both men and women with your business advice, but we have so many women who listen to this. What advice, without maybe suggesting a TED talk, because I'm sure this could be an entire thing of like, what advice or things have you learned as a young woman entrepreneur in your journey that maybe men don't realize, and that also you've found has been tough, or things to overcome, or things that you would just advice you would give to younger female entrepreneurs?
Vulnerability, so very much. My content changed, and my business, my audience expanded so much when I became more vulnerable with my stories. So when I first started, like I said, I was sharing the strategies and the tactics, and it was great because people saw she knows what she's talking about. But then when I started to share my stories and go really deep on the struggles and the wins and the losses and how this feels, which can feel really uncomfortable to share those things. Like, you guys saw me at Funnel Hacking Live. I announced like 3 weeks ago, I changed my name and my marriage ended, like before I'm on the biggest stage of my life. But that was the moment that people were like, whoa, she's human. Why do we watch movies that at the end we're cheering so loud when they win the race or get the girl or land the dream job? Because we watch them hit rock bottom and work their way up. And so we relate to people online, even if we've never met them, because we see what they're going through and we see their stories that still relate and tie into what their expertise is. That's how we trust them. So for male and female entrepreneurs, I just think it's so important to be vulnerable and share who you are. I said before, I make my content a mix of heart and humor. And that has been the biggest shift in my business and my content, to be able to connect with an audience. And it's also really entertaining when I'm like at live events or something, and there's people that will come up and talk to me as if they know me because they see my Instagram stories or they watch my content. And like, how cool is that to be able to connect with someone that feels like they know you, even if you've never met them?
Well, Marley, thank you so much for giving not only strategy, but giving people an insight into, hey, you can absolutely do this, and you don't have to be born a social media star. Like you absolutely don't. And yet you've been able to create such an impactful business by just stepping into who you really are and being comfortable sharing that, and being willing to help other people along their journey who want to do something that you've been able to do for yourself. If someone's sitting here, they're like, holy cow, Marley's so real, she's so cool, and I want to be able to work with her somehow. How does someone get into your world?
Well, I would love for you guys to follow me on YouTube and Instagram. I'll keep up my stand-up comedy for you there. And, but I also have, I mentioned my 21-day Infinite Video Impact Challenge. It's 21 days. Like I said, we've gotten results for our students in that program where they've made like a couple $1,000s just from 21 days of implementing their video strategy for all platforms. So you can sign up for that at infiniteimpactchallenge.com.
Cool. And we will have links to all those in the show notes. Definitely jump in on the challenge. It's been so awesome. We've watched other people see how you're killing it with your challenge, and are like, oh, I got to figure out how to implement something like that in my business. So you're affecting so many more people than you even realize, Marley. And I just want to say we're super grateful for your time. We know you're busy, and just want to say thank you for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to the Healthy Funnel Podcast. Go follow Marley on YouTube, on Instagram, and we will have links to her challenge in the show notes, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode.